You see, we may have been deceived, but it would be foolish in the extreme for us to deny the responsibility that we, as adults, bear for our decisions. Through it all, Meg and I have often discovered we have such wonderful families who have forgiven us many times. That's rare. And a privilege when you realise that forgiveness is not a story repeated in many families. It's sad, isn't it? Working together on the book, I winced often when John sent me a chapter that expressed the horror he and his family experienced because of his crazy brother and the mad Violet. Our sister Janet also has similar stories that she could tell, but I'm so grateful to this point that you haven't told me much of the pain of our mother and father. They both know that is still raw. I don't know that I'm ready to hear it. Thank you. Well, folks, tonight we come full circle. There's a bit of a surprise in what I'm about to say. The story began in an historic Anglican church in Albion Street, Surrey Hills. Here we are, some 35 years later, in another Albion Street, just down the road from another Surrey Hills. This time, because life is a paradox, this Albion Street is in Box Hill, and boxes are wonderful things that are designed for us to put things in and keep them contained. Too many of our societal groups, our churches, have operated from time to time like this, and every destructive cult remains a closed box. Violet's Sign Full Salvation Ministry certainly was. Opening the lid after she died and climbing out is another part of the story. When you read My Brother's Eyes, you'll see what we mean. In Violet Zion, we were forbidden newspapers, had no television, no radio, no books, no fellowship outside of the box. Absolute control of knowledge and behaviour, just like the Eastern Bloc before the fall of communism. And just like every other totalitarian regime in the world today. The paradox continues. There are thousands of cults, destructive groups, in Australia and overseas. Many, many thousands. Many of you here tonight will have stories of your own to tell of abuse, either in churches or faith groups, or perhaps the pain caused by fundamentalist cultic beliefs that have affected you or those you love. All I can say is, beware any group that claims privately or publicly to have a monopoly on the truth. If there was only one making that claim, there might actually be a reason to believe it. But you'll normally find the claim that that group makes is also made by that group, and another one over there, and another one over there. If we'd only realised back in the times when Violet Pryor was alive that there were a number of Violet Pryors around the place, as if they'd gone to the same college to learn the same tricks. It would have helped to disbelieve what we had believed. Foremost Australian cult expert, Reverend Dr. David Millikan, who's given us a quote for the book, offers 3 tests for religious groups that have the potential for extremism and perhaps worse. 1, the group does not allow internal criticism and discussion. Sometimes that reminds me of school. It has a hostile relationship with the world outside, and it seeks to isolate its members. If those 3 things are in place, Millikan says, I think it's beginning to move in extreme directions. All right, we're nearly coming to the end. So believe me, you don't just see those points in extreme faith groups, but in any dysfunctional societal group. You see it in families. Fully developed members lose the right to think for themselves, the right to choose. They are most certainly not empowered. Yet we know, well, I think we know, God wants us to be free. We know that what God offers us is his unconditional forgiveness and love, not fear. Never fear. I'm certain God didn't create the doomsday clock used by destructive cults like violence. The end of the world is about to happen. And because the end of the world is about to happen, you need to do certain things. The end of the world placed at midnight, and it's getting closer by the day. My brother's reference to Violet as the she-devil is an accurate description of what this woman became. But we both agree that whilst we all love simple answers, and we do, don't we? We love simple answers to complex questions. Sometimes simple answers just don't work. Violet wasn't always the she-devil. And that is the great paradox for you and me to work out. You will remember John quoted Jenny Mills of Jim Jones' People's Temple cult. If it all sounds too good to be true, it probably is. I can still picture Violet Pryor. I want you to picture her with me. You may not remember, you may not have seen a photograph, you may not have any resources to do that, but I want you to picture her with me, kneeling at the altar rail of the beautiful St Michael's Anglican Church in Surrey Hills, Sydney, and being moved, as I was, by the fervent devotion of her simple faith. The experience was, let me say, deeply moving to anyone who hungered, as that young man did, for a touch from heaven. Was this a she-devil? What you see is not always what you get. Life is stranger than fiction. Recently, Bryce Courtney told John he would love to write a cult novel, but he doesn't have the information. Bryce, we didn't ask for it, but we've got it, and we're happy to share. Well, I'm going to conclude now. John, I want to thank Gary Eastman and everyone at John Garrett's for publishing My Brother's Eyes. Gary gave us a great editor in Kathy Oliver, who got right to the essence, and we couldn't be more happy with the result. Thanks, Charlie, for the great drawing that you'll see just inside the first couple of pages. We only wish we had the idea for it. There are many other people to thank, not the least our readers. There have been many over the years who read our various drafts and with a critical eye. Too many to thank individually. My Brother's Eyes was our original working title, and somehow it stuck right through the years of writing. Painful experiences cultivate us into the people we are today. We are believers still, though perhaps, as John says, in spite of the church. I'm convinced that as this century progresses, people will not abandon Christianity. Rather, those with courage will look at many of the doctrines that they have embraced, that the church has embraced through their denominations, and will evaluate them on a different scale, whether they seek to empower or whether they seek to control. The Bible describes humans as created after the image of God, an egalitarian description that doesn't elevate any person as being more equal, more God than any other. Finally, I want to just say that I'm indebted to our children, Grace, Nahum, Ruth and Joseph, for allowing some public scrutiny of our skeleton in the closet as it gets flesh. And to my dear wife Meg, who continues to say, I learnt that my faith is greater than any religion. That is our hope for a better and more just world where we try to see life through our brothers and our sisters' eyes and value what happens outside of our box as much as in. Thank you.